Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your moderator, GBTA Board Chairman, Bart Serene.
I'm back. We're going to kick off center stage today with two of the most iconic names, not just in corporate travel, but in all of business. Hyatt Hotels and United Airlines. I mean, who doesn't know those two names, right? We're on a clock here. We have the CEOs from both of these wonderful organizations joining us today to discuss operating a company from Chicago, to discuss strengths and challenges in their business, and maybe, if I can wrestle it out of them, some exciting product announcements. Now, as your Chicago-based moderator, I'm being forced to make this disclaimer. I am a card-carrying Hyatt globalist, and I might spend 1 hour of every day of my life trying to figure out how to requalify for global services. So I might have a little bit of unconscious bias today, but I'll endeavor to call it straight down the middle. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the Chief Executive Officers of Hyatt Hotels Corporation and United Airlines, Mark Hoplamazian and Oscar Munoz.
Those are good pictures of us.
Hey, not bad.
Can we just have those up front?
Exactly. Gentlemen, welcome to GBTA in Chicago. We're very happy to have you here today. So let's start with our city. The publication Time Out recently ranked Chicago the 3rd best city in the world. Last year ranked us #1. In addition to that, all economic and government agencies you read say that Chicago, due to its infrastructure, talent pool, and diversity, are amongst one of the best cities in the world to operate, 400 plus corporate headquarters, 36 of the Fortune 500. What are the advantages to running such a large global company from such a well-regarded and diverse city?
Mark, I'll let you go first. You've been here longer than I have. Because I have a great personal stories about Chicago. So.
Yeah, well, first let me just say thank you to GBTA for being here. It's fantastic to have all of you here in Chicago. And for those of you who don't know, because you haven't been to Chicago very much, it's like this, if you go outside and look at the weather, it's like this all the time, so.
Except when it isn't.
So that's one of the things we have got going for us. No, look, I think frankly, right off the bat, what I would say is Chicago is a great talent pool. We employ, just in the city of Chicago itself, over 3,000 people between hotel teams and our corporate office. And I have to say that, over the now 32 years that I've been living in Chicago, it's gotten easier and easier to attract people and great talent to this city. And from a business perspective, there's so much going on here for all of you in respect of your customers and clients. The food scene here is unbelievable. It continues to morph and evolve in some amazing and beautiful ways. The entirety of the riverfront, on which we both office, by the way, on the River Walk, is magnificent. And of course, let me not forget that you can get here from anywhere in the world, courtesy of some amazing operations that someone here has. So I think from that perspective, it's quite a remarkable place to be, to attract people. And from our perspective, since our colleagues are going around the world and around the country on a regular basis, the transportation hub here is really fantastic.
Yeah, and I just certainly agree with all of that. We're both in the hospitality industry, and nothing makes someone feel more at home than embracing warm arms, right? And the business community here in Chicago is amazing. Yeah. I moved here 4.5 years ago, and the immediate access you have to all the things that have to be done. #1 in relocations for the last 3 or 4 years. There's lots going on for this great city. And again, the infrastructure is great. We have great, obviously, hotels, And as the hometown airline, we are also very proud of what we've been able to do. In fact, 85% of the growth that we have, to your point, 85% of the growth that we've had, that's been at ORD has been United flying. So we're excited about that. But it's a great community, great place, great access to schools. And you know, I'm sure like you, we have no problem getting candidates for roles because it's such a great place to come and live and great companies to work for.
So you have a lot of strengths operating from Chicago. And as I watched my 401k dive this morning, we certainly have a lot of challenges in this world where those strengths can be helpful, be it trade, tariffs, FX, you name it. What are strengths within your organizations that help all of these travel buyers in the crowd know that ultimately, when those headwinds in the economy hit us, that you're a strong partner to navigate those times?
Should I go first again?
Yeah, you can, or I can do it.
Why don't you go?
Well, you know, the airline industry, as a lot of you in the room have seen over the past few decades, has never historically been a really strong financially oriented industry. That has changed dramatically. I think the industry as a whole is in a much better place. And when I think about United and the uniquely United attributes and assets that we have, I always cite this phrase of proof, not promise. And our last close to year, we have been inundated with government shutdowns, nasty weather, airspace shutdowns, the grounding of the MAX aircraft. I heard Dennis is going to be here later. All of those issues, and through all that, back to your point, the resiliency, the pride and professionalism of our people that take care of you as customers has been amazing. And we've been contributing to the bottom line, and our financial community is also helpful. And so it's important to be all things to all those different constituencies, and of course, never forgetting the community. So I think we've proven to all of you over the course of these last year and a half that we don't back down from the promises we've made you as the great customers that you are.
So for us, we, as a company, the brand of Hyatt is well known, and there's huge awareness around the world. And we enjoy a strong reputation in the places where we operate, but actually we're a relatively smaller business. We're significantly smaller than some of our very large competitors like Hilton and Marriott, for example. And what that's really forced us to do is to stay focused on who we're serving and how we're doing that to try to create some differentiation. So as a company, we've really been dedicated to being purpose-driven for some years now. More than 5 years ago, we unveiled a real commitment to one purpose, which guides everything that we do, which is to care for people so they can be their best. It's about caring, not just serving them, but caring for them. In order to do that, you have to practice empathy, and you have to really understand what the needs are, whether that's a meeting planner, or an individual guest, a colleague, a hotel owner, or a member of the communities in which we operate. So I would say the things that we're doing are constantly evolving, like real time, every day, and it's hyper-focused on what the needs are. In particular, I would say, as I look at how we're going about evolving and growing, we're trying to grow in the areas that are most responsive to the needs of our most important guests and customers. So places like Seattle, where we just last December opened the largest convention center hotel in the Pacific Northwest, or Portland, where we're going to open another convention hotel in November, or in Nashville, where we have a convention hotel coming up. It'll open next October in 2020. Those are very deliberate moves. We bought some boutique hotel brands, Thompson, Joie de Vivre, Alila, and Destination, in order to expand and extend our resort destination opportunities. All of these things were in response to things that we were hearing from all of you. So I would say most importantly, as times change and as we go through ups and downs, which we all have been through and we all know will come, really having a responsive partner is the number one thing that we think we can do.
Mark, you mentioned caring for people. And people is certainly a challenge we hear these days with our HR groups talking about winning talent, war for talent, you name it. And we're not immune from this industry perspective, right? There's way more people in this crowd that are looking to retire in 5 years than that have 5 years of experience. And with the thousands of employees that both of your organizations are going to have to hire over the coming years, what are you specifically doing to differentiate and not just win that talent, but train and retain them?
So I'll just touch on two things. The answer is many different things, but I'll touch on two things in particular. The first is several years ago, we bought a brand called Miraval, which is a very high-end destination resort, really focused on well-being and mindfulness, practice of mindfulness in everything that they do. And that really inspired us to think about well-being within within the company and for our own colleagues. Of course, we're extending that now to guests and offerings to corporate customers as well. But first and foremost, we have to make sure that we have our own colleagues in a great state of well-being, holistically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, for sure. And so we've been very intensively focused on ensuring that we are creating the right environment for everyone to have a good sense of well-being. You can't practice empathy unless you're present, and you can't be present unless you're mindful. So these are the things that we're really focusing on to try to ensure that we've got a really healthy environment for people. The second thing is that, one, I'm very proud of Chicago, and a lot of what Oscar said is true. It's also true, though, that we live in two Chicagos, about 2.5 miles to 3 miles south west of here are neighborhoods where the unemployment rate's in the mid-teens, and you can compare that to the overall unemployment rate in Chicago of about 3%. And we have a responsibility, and we've undertaken a responsibility to really extend ourselves to try to employ more and more people from those communities. And we think it's a phenomenal talent pool. So from an availability perspective, it's true that the labor market in a broad sense is tight, but our view is that we're in part not looking in the right places. So we're really diving into that. We've made a commitment to hire 10,000 so-called opportunity youth. These are young people who are out of school and out of work over the next, by 2025. And we think that that's going to be a phenomenal pipeline of new talent for us.
I think it's wonderful that you're doing that, and how interesting how many companies across the universe, a lot of our counterparts are doing big issues like that. We do something called Year Up, which is a similar issue.
That's right.
But to your question on the issue of retention and attraction and retention, obviously, I think you start with, you build a really, really powerful brand and product and company that captures the spirit of the people that want to join it. And that's been our mission from day one. And so we don't have a lot of problem with attracting a lot of different people. How do you make sure you understand? Because the fundamental question that we have to ask anyone that joins our company, and in many ways, you just have to ask, do you like people? Because if you do not like people, this is not the business for you, right?
Pretty good rule.
and so working hard on how we attract, how we test and ask those questions, but also building the attributes that are fundamental to being a community player, whether it's taking care of folks in communities that don't have the access. We do things around the LGBTQ community, sustainability. We've done a lot of things in there. We're one of the few airlines, in fact, the only airline to have put a carbon reduction project in place. We do things in so many community and social issues, and it's important to a lot of folks that are wanting to join the workforce that the company they work for, the product that they represent, is a meaningful one that thinks of all the different constituents, very much like yours. So it's fun, it's exciting, and sometimes it can be challenging.
That's great. So I have to ask one challenging question, and please don't rescind my status levels for this. For many years, travel buyers such as myself and all those in the crowd today have had a challenge with loyalty programs, conflicting with the interest that we have in terms of our managed travel programs. And a lot of our travelers seeking to fly airlines or stay in hotels because of their points versus where we want them for the interest of the business. I'm curious, inside your organizations, what are you doing to connect World of Hyatt and Mileage Plus with Gus and Jake's sales teams to ensure that the customer voice is heard and there's balance and equilibrium between the interests?
I think, first and foremost, I don't think there's a loyalty program enacted that doesn't have the full buy-in of Jake and the sales team. our corporate advisory board, which many of you are probably in the room. We bring all of these things to you and hear very directly how it complements or doesn't complement. And both those organizations in our company are in the same organizational structure, and we talk about that all the time. So, and more importantly, we have you have an open line to our folks if there's something that disagrees with that. So those are the tactical things that we do.
Yeah, likewise, our philosophy is very much the same. These are two component pieces of one whole. And so they need to work in complement with one another. And I don't experience them as conflicting as much as I do complementing. And in particular, so we obviously have World of Hyatt programs for meeting planners, for example, to engage them and to reward them, frankly, for the business that they're doing with us. But as I look at it, we've got hotels. Most of our hotels serve many different types of customers. And really the key is to make sure that we're fulfilling the needs of each of those customer groups distinctly, or individual guests distinctly. And that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to make it complementary and more powerful as a whole, as opposed to two distinct pieces.
Well, that's great.
And then you have something like global services, which it's a pretty high demand everywhere I go.
And low supply. So, gentlemen, let's move into some rapid fire, a little lightning round to quit. A little lighthearted questions. The role of the CEO is 24/7. When you have those moments to spare, what do you do to decompress and relax?
Well, actually, I mentioned earlier that we've done all this work around mindfulness. So, if it's a moment to relax in the day and rest my mind, it's meditation, which I've started to practice. I can't say that I'm either turning to it or able to do it every day, but at least several times a week. That's really helpful. Just some basic breathing exercises and some time to sort of let my mind relax and then go into the next thing I have to do with clarity and with focus. I have to say that when I'm on vacation, though, and I'm looking to unplug, the number one thing, and this is actually, I have 3 kids, 21, 19, and 15, and they agree with what I'm about to say, which is our best vacations as a family have been where we have not had cell service. So out in the wilderness, places where we can't get a connection, just leave the rest of the world apart and just focus on being together. And so that's really incredible release for me when I'm.
So you're going to Antarctica this year.
I have to admit, I'm not nearly as evolved on the meditation front.
We can help you with that. We can help you.
I think for me in particular, in the world that we operate, with taking care of all of you as customers, a lot of my energy and that 24/7 sort of time frame, any chance I get, connecting with our employees on the ground is a really meaningful, actually energy-inducing thing for me. Yeah. I hear lots of things, usually good suggestions to what we can do better, but it's also just great to sort of thank them for the kind of work they do for everything else. Other times, I'm a big active guy. I like to ride bikes, I surf, all those different things that people like to do. And we all find our ways. And
yeah, for sure.
It's important that we do take some of that time.
You two are both ultimately the chief talent deciders of your organizations. As we look towards the future, what is one skill each of us needs to have for business in the future?
So I talked about the practice of empathy earlier. One of my most valued for me mentors in life said, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, you should use them in that proportion. So I would say the practice of empathy and really engaging with other people to really understand them is absolutely essential.
And I'd agree with that and add a component of what I would term cultural fluency. As you listen, understand what you're listening to and apply it in a way that exhibits to the individual that spoke to you a direct feedback mechanism. It's like, hey, you get what I am. And we live in a world where we have, if you think of the number of customers that we fly across, all the different spectrum, international, local, race, color, sex, creed, all of that. How we react to that is an important part of today's world.
I'm sitting here laughing because my boss is sitting in the front row, and she's sitting there saying, I hope Bart actually listens to Mark and Oscar. Gentlemen, 30 seconds each. A final thought you want to leave us with about Chicago, United, Hyatt, GBTA.
Please enjoy the city while you're here. We have a wonderful hotel right next door, so come by and and visit us.
Certainly echo that, and importantly, really thank you for your business. All of you in this room are a great source of what we do and how we do it, and more importantly, all the improvements that we've made. I addressed you as a crowd a few years ago when I first started with the company, and we suggested and thought and structured a plan of attack of how we were going to win your hearts and minds, and where United is the airline you choose to fly, not necessarily have to. And I think we've made great progress on that, so thank you for helping us through that journey.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say to both of you, thank you for making the time to come to our convention. As you can see, the room is standing room only. We have a record number of attendees this year, and undoubtedly that is part of your attendance as well. So everyone, can we please thank Oscar and Mark for joining us today?